We'll call the meeting to order of the Community Development Committee, November 18th, 2021 at 5:03. Present are Sean Anderson, Judy Archterhorf, and myself, Ed Schochner. Absent is Dan Hansen and Scott Counter. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes from the last meeting from Thursday, October 21st? Hearing none, those minutes will stand as approved. Any public comment? Anyone here from the public that would like to make a comment on or off the agenda? Anybody else from the public for public input, public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to, we don't have any public hearings right now, so the financial report for October.
The financial report is in your packet. I don't have anything exciting to tell you. We've gone over some of the highlights. Revenues and parks are good. Registered deeds revenues are good. None of the expenses are grossly over in any area that's going to put any of the departments behind, but I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Supervisor Achterhoff.
Yeah, this time I have questions. I had more, but I left my sheet at home. But the first one's on page 4, just at the very top of the page, the general property taxes. You have the operation budget adopted. Year to date is less. So you have the 56 in green, and we have 16% less. And then you go down to Register of Deeds fees, which budgeted was 800,000, I'm rounding these off, and they've received over $1 million. So they have extra, but it's saying percentage remaining 43%. So shouldn't that be, shouldn't the 43% be in green? Because that's extra. I don't understand it.
You're correct.
Because and that's happened a couple other places throughout the packet. I mean, if you can do red on the very right column, you should be able to do green.
Yep. Oh, I get what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's just really confusing because you don't know what, that would be nice, because I know I've mentioned doing stuff like that before.
Yep, and we've made those changes. I haven't noticed this one before or caught that one. But
oh, there's another one.
You are correct.
Yeah, because I think it's, because then if you go over to on page 8, under parks, park fees and rents, budgeted was 300, they've gotten 400, and so they have the 100s in green, and and it's the same thing, the 30%, but the one right above it is 148. There's no consistency as to how this is being done, and it's really confusing.
Yeah, I'm going to take a look at that formula to see what we can do to make that better for you. Yeah,
because some of the ones where we have extra are above 100%, and some of them are below, and you don't know whether they're missing that money or that's extra, and it's still, it's very, very confusing.
Any other questions on the financial? Thank you, Ken. Next on the agenda is Eckert Buffland's operating revenues and expenses, economic impacts.
Good afternoon, committee members. This next item on the agenda is a follow-up from our October discussion regarding the Eckert Buffland's Master Park Plan. At the end of that discussion, the committee directed staff to come up with a number of economic impact calculations, and we broke them up into 2 categories. The first category being the request from the committee regarding estimated operating revenues and operating expenditures, assuming the park at full build-out. So we put some information together for that. The second portion of the request was to review some studies relating to overall economic impacts to the community in the greater region. And we put some information together for that. And then lastly, we'd like to go back and revisit the discussion we had in October about establishing a future public hearing date. So what we're going to do is approach this one step at a time. We're going to take a first look at our operating revenues and operating expenditures. Again, these are projected based on build-out of the master plan as it was reviewed last month. So I'll just go through the summary real quick. On the top, we have the estimated revenues, and we do have assumptions that I'll get into on the following pages, but I'll just run through the summary. Admission daily pass revenue is at $128,050. Cabin and yurt rentals at $175,680. Hike-in site income, and then we follow that with the Eckert cabin rental, shelter and overlook reservations, and special event permits, which totals $326,490. Then as we get to the expenditures, we summarize our projected salaries for a full-time property manager, along with 2.5 full-time equivalent seasonals that would be from Memorial Day to Labor Day, which are the peak summer months. And then 1 full-time equivalent, which would be 2 6-month seasonals split over the course of the year. And what we did is we projected some of the utilities based on other park usage. You'll notice as we go through, you see a higher amount for electricity. That's primarily because we assumed additional electric costs because of our heating and cooling of the capper cabins and the yurts. Trash and recycling, septic pumping, internet heating, all the way down to gas and oil. We used historic numbers based from our current park operations, and then just built a prorated amount of 50% for the size of Eckert Bluffland and the number of additional facilities. Liability insurance was factored the same way. It was a portion of some of our existing liability insurance from our existing parks. We have non-fixed assets for some of the smaller equipment that will be needed for the operation of the day-to-day of the park. Miscellaneous contracting, we felt we needed to build in a number for this in case we had larger events happen that were above and beyond our staffing, such as storm cleanup, larger snow events where we would need to get that plowed out quickly, and in case our staff would not be able to make it in time. General upkeep and facilities and amenities, again, taking a look at some of our historic costs. Crusher fines, this is the material that our walking trails will be made of, and with the amount of trails that we're projecting in the park, we will need to have a supply of crusher fines on hand. And then the $20,100 in sales tax credit fee, that's a part of our income that we collect through our rental, so we had to add that back in as an expenditure. And that totals $298,800, so there's a difference of about $27,000 in favor of revenue versus expenditures. So let's get a little bit into how we came up with some of our assumptions. In terms of past revenue, we took a look at our top layer of information here. If you look at the colored graph on the screen, we took Homestead Park and we looked at the revenue from daily passes, or total passes, I'm sorry, at $137,010 at Homestead Park, which is our more attended park within the county. And then we took the 2021 numbers at $119,100, and we just cut those in half and averaged them out to $128,050. So again, the new park, it's going to be much larger. We're going to have additional parking compared to Homestead, but again, that was a more conservative estimate. We also took a projected daily pass estimate using our vehicle estimates of approximately 50,000 vehicles a year, and we'll get into that assumption in just a little bit. And then we assigned a 60% factor of those who purchase a daily pass versus an annual pass, and we factored that out by using numbers from 2021 and 2020. We took the number of daily passes divided against the total amount of passes sold. And you'll see in both years they come out to about 60%. So we just took the 50,000 vehicles times 60% of the vehicles purchasing a daily pass at 10% per daily pass equals 300,000. So the total park gross revenue estimate from daily passes would be between 128,050 and 300,000. For purposes of estimating revenue, we took the smaller number of 128,050. Then we needed to come up with some estimates for our hike-in sites and then our camper cabin sites. And for that, we just divided the number of days in the year into 105 summer days, which is 15 weeks from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We went with a 60% occupancy rate at 13 total sites for a total of 819 camper nights. And then we took the 260 non-summer days, which is everything between Labor Day and Memorial Day, and we only assumed a 15% occupancy. Keep in mind, some of those months will be October, the latter half of September, which is still pretty nice out. That also includes April and May. So again, we used a conservative estimate of 15% occupancy, which brings us to 1,326 total hike-in camping nights at $10 a night, 13,260. And then we did a little bit more research on the camper cabins. So as part of the master plan, we are projecting the build out of 24 camper cabin and yurt sites. We took the 105 summer days times the 24 sites, and we assumed a 50% occupancy. We did some checking of other campgrounds with camper cabins, which included state parks and county parks within the metro area. Their occupancies were consistently at 55 to 60%. We dropped ours to 50% occupancy for purposes of estimating, which brings us to a total of 1,260 camper nights. And then for the non-summer days, we dropped that down to 15% for a total of 936 camper nights. Again, you may think that's a lot. When you think of the non-summer, you think of December, January, February, but again, keep in mind, we will have cabin rentals available year-round, but the warmer months, go into the latter half of September and October, which is counted into this estimate. So if you take the 2,196 camping nights at the projected rental rate of $80 a night, that comes to $175,680. So the total camping revenue from hike-in and camping cabins and yurts is $188,940. And again, we broke it out in the revenue section as camper cabin, yurt rental, and then hike-in sites. For attendance, you'll see on the following page, we used some very basic estimates and we backed in to this number based on the total number of off-street parking stalls that are being provided within the park, and that total is 175. And during our planning process, we were very careful not to provide too much parking. We wanted to make sure we balanced the amenities with the anticipated number of visitors. We could have had more, but again, we did not want to jeopardize the integrity of our amenities. So using 175 parking stalls as a base, for summer weekend days, we're assuming 75% capacity. That would equal 131.25 stalls. In summertime, we assumed a number of 3 for the number of times in a day that the parking stalls will turn over, which equals 393.75 stalls. And based on research we have done, on average, you'll have 3.5 people per vehicle for a total of 1,378 visitors per day on summer weekend days. That translates to 62,000 visitors. And then we use the same method for the summer weekdays. Only we drop that down to 50% capacity. Again, multiplying that out to the number of parking stalls occupied times the number of times in a day the parking will turn over gives you a total parking stall amount, 3.5 people per vehicle, 919 visitors per day times 60 weekdays in the summer, $55,140. And so you can read it for yourself, but we did the same thing for the non-summer. And as you see, as we go down, we dropped the estimate of the capacity of parking stalls used down to 35% for non-summer weekend days. And for non-summer weekdays, we dropped it down to 20%. We also dropped the number of times the parking will turn over in the non-summer days from 3 to 2. So we're going to end up with smaller numbers, obviously, during the non-summer weekend days and non-summer weekdays. But you can see the total numbers that we come up with: 47,397 for non-summer weekend days, 36,505 for non-summer weekdays. Brings us to a total estimate of about 201,052 people. And then if you divide that amount by 3.5 people per vehicle, that gets you down to 57,443. Or for rounding purposes, we dropped it down to 50,000 vehicles per day, which is what we used in our estimate for daily permit revenue. To compare that, we just did some analysis. For example, Willow River State Park, granted a much bigger park. They have approximately 650 off-street parking stalls in their facility, but in 2019 there were between 1 million and 1.1 million visitors per year. So we'll be just shy of 20% of that when we're built out. I'll stop there. Are there any questions about the methodology or anything that might need clarification from your perspective?
No questions? No, go ahead. So far, so good.
The second part of our research dealt with taking a look at some of the ancillary impacts that the park would have. And one of the impacts we wanted to research was the impact on property values. And so we did some research. We came up with some information that was done by a professor at the University of Texas A&M. And what they did is they took 33 studies that have been done since the year 2000 in terms of how park development impacts property value. And in summary, that article had stated that, in all but 3 of the 33 studies reviewed, there were increases in property premiums or increase in property value, ranging from 4 to 10%, which results in higher property tax revenue. In the 3 cases that it did not increase value, the factors that impacted that were litter and vandalism, noise, and intrusive ball field lights, which are more of your active parks. Eckerd Blufflands, is not really promoting any active sports that would include ball field lights. We're promoting hiking, camping, and some lower impact recreational uses. So we don't think that will be a factor here, but nonetheless, that study did note 10% of the cases, they did not see a result in a higher premium. Home value premiums were more positive when properties were close to passive rather than active parks. And also proximity to water areas and adjacent to golf courses resulted in higher premiums. And this was very interesting, this last bullet item. The larger the size of the park, the higher the home value premium is likely to be. And this may be partially explained by larger parks having more buffers to insulate the proximate residents from potential negative factors. And if you remember last week, we kind of looked at the master plan. We were gauging some distances from some of our playground areas, from adjacent residential properties. And again, the closest activity we will have will be about 2.5 football fields away from neighboring residential properties. And then we have the links to the reports if you care to go into the analysis further. The next article, we just took a look at a broader impact on what capital spending by local park and recreation agencies have on the U.S. economy. In Wisconsin alone, local park and rec agencies generate $2.04 billion in economic activity, and they support 14,534 jobs, with a total labor income of $573 million. And this was done in 2020 by research done by the National Recreation and Parks Association. There's also benefit in savings to health and wellness. Oregon State did a study in 2018 where they promoted the engagement in one of 30 outdoor rec activities that they tracked. And through their tracking, they were able to pinpoint a savings of approximately $735 million to $1.4 billion in cost savings accrued to health insurers, providers, and participants. The other thing that we saw during COVID was we saw a new segment of population that engaged in outdoor activities, such as camping and hiking. I think we'll know in a year or two when some studies are done if that rate will continue as far as these new users venturing into the, using the outdoor spaces for their exercise and activity. So we're encouraged by seeing the higher numbers of outdoor use and park use in 2019. 85% of respondents to the 2019 survey from the NRPA indicate that they would seek a high-quality park and recreation amenity when choosing a place to live. And the study also summarized visitor spending benefits relating to tourism in the respective locales, such as restaurants, bars, lodging and camping, recreating, and supplies. This next study talks about the economic impacts of Wisconsin state parks to the economy.
Excuse me, John.
Well,
I just
Judy's got a
have, well, it's a question. What was the ratio or what led you to the decision about how to compare between the Willow River parking and what the potential parking would be at this new park?
I think I was just using that as a comparison. I think everybody's familiar with Willow River State Park. I just wanted to paint the perspective between the two facilities. That Willow River Park is much bigger. They have a much higher attendance, but hey, maybe that's an opportunity for us to capitalize on some of those visitors. So I just wanted to point that out as a comparison, that's all.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. While this next study is somewhat dated, it does provide some insight into spending habits of people that visit parks. And again, this was a study done by the DNR and the UW-Madison Extension in 2013. And they tried tracking the average spending of a person that visits a state facility. And I simply added the spending chart that shows you the spending by activity that a person will spend. And you'll see running and jogging is fairly an inexpensive activity. And again, this is the average of users. Some people are going to spend more, some people will spend less. And as you go down the list, as you get, you see some of the bird watching, naturalists, camping, picnicking, you see the average person will spend $41.19 when they visit a state park. And then they have the breakdown by category of restaurants, gasoline, the higher amount obviously being groceries and supplies. Liquor was mentioned in there too. But you go down, you can compare the uses versus the amount spent in the state parks. And again, not to say that the county park is going to reflect that. We just wanted to show you some trending on how much impact that has on the economy. The majority of this trip spending is almost 60% done by visitors who do not reside within local communities. So when we say that, that's really important to remember because that's really new money coming into the county and the region versus you and me. We have a paycheck, we spend money, we have a finite amount to spend, whether it's at Target or the park. But when you get new money into the county, the piece of the pie gets bigger. We're talking new money that's spent in the area. And this was really interesting. From 2013, the number of people that were considered non-local visits to Willow River State Park was 75%. So it's a fairly large number that come into the county to visit the facilities. We're estimating that that would likely be the case with a facility like Eckert Bluffland and even Homestead Park that we've been tracking. We do get a lot of visitors from the Twin City metro area. You know, it's a metropolitan area of 3 to 4 million people, and the opportunities for them to get out and not have to travel too far away to a new facility can be appealing. Again, the Twin City metropolitan statistical area is a population of 3.69 million people in 2020. So that's some of the market that we would like to tap and expose. And again, the high amount of local visits bring new money into the local economy. And then lastly, we just pulled some articles. Some of these were from the Department of Revenue from the state of Wisconsin, but we just wanted to show you the highlight kind of at the bottom of this graph. St. Croix County ranked 25th of 72 counties in terms of state and local taxes generated from outdoor recreation and tourism. And keep in mind, tourism is a much broader perspective that includes a lot more uses. It includes supplies, outfitting. So it goes above and beyond camping and recreating. But camping and recreating is still a part of tourism. And just to show you the impacts of the county, in 2019, St. Croix County took in $14.7 million in state and local taxes. That did drop during COVID down to 11.9 in 2020. I'm not sure where the 2021 numbers will fall, but hopefully they'll be on the upward climb as we get out of COVID. Wisconsin Office of Outdoor Recreation, we have links to these articles that you can look at, but just to show the outdoor recreation industry impact in Wisconsin, that industry, the outdoor rec economy, contributes $7.8 billion, or 2.4% to Wisconsin's gross domestic product, the GDP. This is larger than the size of the GDP from mining and farming combined. So it's a very important industry to the state of Wisconsin. And then lastly, we want to just mention the impact of bicycling, even though it's not a direct park development as part of the master plan. We do have some major trail improvements planned for the Highway 35 corridor that this park will abut. As you know, we applied for and received Phase 1 grant to come out of North Hudson to get to Eckert Bluffland Park. That's currently being designed, projected to be built late next year. And then we will be applying for the second phase of the grant, which would run from Eckert Bluffland to River Road, and then east along River Road as a striped bike lane to the entrance of Willow River State Park at the corner of Trout Brook Road and River Road. And then lastly, we just want to indicate pull factors that would likely draw visitor usage from different areas of the state. And it's more important that what our park is not. We did not want to compete with Willow River State Park and Homestead Park. So the proposed uses in Eckert that will not compete with Wild River include the camper cabins, yurts, hike-in campsites, access to the St. Croix, vistas, river bluff overlooks, swinging bridge trails over ravines, stargazing mounds, and a sledding hill. The appeal of the park, we believe, will actually allow people to have simple access if they consider Eckert as a base to access multiple venues and attractions. You know, when you consider the proximity to Homestead Park, Willow River Park, they have the complementary uses such as the beaches that Eckert will not. Access to downtown Hudson, downtown Stillwater, Afton State Park, St. Croix River Crossing, Loop Trail, and Loop Trailheads, along with the attractions and connection to the Twin City area biking trails. We feel those will be pull factors that will impact positively people who want to stay at Eckert. Again, we talked earlier about the proximity to a major metro area of 4 million people. Convenient location off of Highway 35, direct access off of 35, and then access to I-94 and the new bridge crossing. So it'll be a park that should be very accessible. And then, of course, I just mentioned the ultimate development of our Plan 35 off-road trail, the ultimate objective to get to the loop trail in Holton. From there, you can get into Stillwater, onto existing Twin City regional trails that will get you access to the 7-county metropolitan area biking trail system. And I've biked some of that out of Stillwater, and it's beautiful. It'll be a nice link to have. The other opportunity that this will be presented to the county will be being able to promote this park. You know, that'll have to be a conscientious decision that we discuss in terms of promoting the park, advertising, you know, the limits on, I mean, there really aren't any limits to this. You know, we have already used our website, Facebook, promotional events, publication advertising, working with chambers of commerce, perhaps partnering with Willow River State Park on promotions and vice versa. I think there's some opportunities there to promote the two facilities. And then, of course, the park visits add vibrancy to the local economy. So I'll stop there. Take any questions, observations, feedback, anything you have.
Go ahead, Judy.
I just say that was quite thorough and definitely helpful, and it's nice that it was positive.
Any questions, Sean? No, I want to thank staff too, for that was a very good report. I really appreciated the time that was spent on that. It was very informative. So I think it should be well put together for the rest of the county board. It explains everything. So other than that, I don't have any other questions either. So thank you again.
So I guess to go on from that, then I think if the committee is comfortable for staff to move forward and look at scheduling the public hearing, we can certainly do that. I know we talked about that a little bit at the last meeting, but of course we tabled it until we were able to present this information. So a tentative date, I mean, if the committee is comfortable, and with the 30-day minimum notice we have to do, the soonest we could have a public hearing would be January 20th, which would be the regular meeting in January for the committee. That would be the third Thursday of the month. And again, that would allow us ample time to advertise. There was also one change that the committee had requested last time about additional facilities within the entry station. We talked about expanded bathrooms and a shower facility. And we have that documented, and we can make that change. We just wanted to get through tonight before we did that. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at for timing.
So what does committee think? Go ahead. Oh,
If we had it at the January public hearing in January, the committee, if there wasn't, even if there were a few changes that night, we could have it go to the February county board. So that would be the plan. We'd like to have it adopted by February, so we could start moving forward with other plans.
Okay, this is just for the plan. This has nothing to do with bonding, correct?
Correct, and there's nothing in the actual plan document about bonding, or basically the plan document has cost estimates, including the change, or not a change, but the clarification that there would be shower facilities and restrooms at the entrance station. So it has all those costs in it, and it talks about that the next step would be to start talking about phasing, and there is there's a one approach could be, but there's nothing at all that commits to anything. So right now it's a plan. And even as we know from previous projects, once you, and that's mentioned in here, when you go from the plan to architectural detail with architectural planning, a lot of things get shifted, moved a little bit here, moved a little bit there, adjusted, changed. But the plan concept is what you hold to, is this is the intent, and then you have a direction to go. And you also have And of course, because this is a plan document and we don't know when, the estimates, cost estimates are probably, pushed a little bit to the high side. That's the intent also, is to try to make sure that it would be over, not under. So this doesn't have anything to do with how you build it or when.
Let's the
What-
commit,
Oops, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
What the plan did do is we broke the cost estimates into short-term, midterm, and long-term
Term.
cost estimates. So again, the short term was about $10.4 million, which included all the camping facilities, the main physical activity area by the playground, the picnic shelters, everything in green, the prairie restoration. What does not include would be the hike-in sites, and then some of the rope climbing and mountain bike training course. And then phase 2 would be the adventure play area, the ropes course, mountain bike training, sledding hill, the swinging bridge trail through some of the ravine area and the southeast portion of the site. That estimate was 1.25 million, and then the long-term estimates were for the hike-in sites. And that estimate was at 1.12 million. And then within the plan document, we had the detailed cost breakouts.
And it did end, the very last page talked about all kinds of options for coming up with funding sources. So just identified options. And bonding is listed as an option on there, so, but there's a lot of things listed on there.
Did we do this for every park? Because I mean, we've done little things in some of the land we've purchased, and I don't remember ever having to go through this.
We did this when we bought a new park, the last time we had a new park, which was Eckert Blufflands, or excuse me, Homestead
Homestead.
Park. Yeah, we created and hired an outside firm, and there was a long-range master plan with different phases, and then there was initial development that was approved by the county board, and it was constructed. And there were things that weren't done that were identified, things that were done over time. And then, like, the last thing that was in that plan that didn't get done until this year was the entrance station. And that park opened 20 years ago.
So it took 20 years to complete it.
Totally completed, yeah. I would say that we wouldn't want to take that long with this facility. And you have to understand, that one did the same as this. To get up, open, and operating, you have to put the greatest initial investment in. And that's the way it went there. And there was a lot of grant writing and a lot of work, but the county board put money into it too. Not, I think they put in probably about $500,000. Things were a little cheaper back then, so. And then we had a lot of grants, so. That was done, if it was done for Glen Hills, that was a long time ago, in the 60s, because Glen Hills opened in 1972, and so I would say that if it was done, I don't know where even that document is. However, a few years ago, we did a master plan for portions of Glen Hills, and we did go through this process there, and we've been working on the items in that to upgrade it and restore it. The smaller parks, for instance, Pine Lake, it's a fishing, it's a boat launch, a little shoreline fishing, and a single shelter. Doesn't really need a master plan. And Troy Beach. But we did, as staff, came up with a plan for Orff Family Overlook, and we have been implementing that nonstop since we bought it, and we're almost done. Ken wishes we were already done, but we just got one more little project next summer, and then we'll be done. Can't help it. We'll run out of weather and time and things like that. But yeah, we are really close to done there.
So does the committee want to go forward and have a public hearing at our next meeting? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to have a public hearing on January 20th, 2022 for the Eckert Blufflands Master Plan.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second by Scott. More discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Any announcements and correspondence?
I want Ellen to make the announcement about what Halloween was like.
Oh,
I want
Sure.
that in public out there.
Okay, so the Saturday before Halloween, October 30th, we had a event at Homestead Parklands on Perch Lake. We didn't know what kind of attendance we would get. We had a variety of things planned, trick-or-treating on the Bookworm Trail where we had volunteers dressed up and kids could walk between it. We had some master naturalists there with some, on the Bookworm Trail with some interesting things like a display of skulls that fit the theme. We had one of our parks trailers they fixed up as a hayride with some extra railings and stuff, and we drove down the hill over behind and turned around and came back, and I was on the wagon reading a story, and we hoped to get 150 people and probably 60 kids. That was our goal. We ended up with over 700 people. We know that because we counted cars and when we estimated how many were in it. And we also had people, if you've been to Homestead, lines of cars went from, and we ran this from 2 o'clock, it was supposed to end at 6. We went till almost 7 because we had people waiting in line to go on the hayride. And we had people lined up in their vehicles all the way from the entrance station out that long, long entrance we have and down the road on Perch Lake Road. And people parked on Perch Lake Road and walked all the way up and in. A lot of people did. It was packed. People loved it. They were, other than couple small instances, people were polite and happy. I couldn't believe it. The hayride was about 15 to 20 minutes. People waited, and then usually we filled the wagon, and there was still a group waiting, and they would have to wait, another amount of time, a full 20 minutes, and they'd maybe already rated 10. It was amazing.
So you need to upgrade more wagons next year?
I don't know how we would actually
Do that?
We're debating how we could get up and down, and they had to run and buy lots of extra candy. Did find out that county cards don't work if you run to buy candy, and we were giving out candy and water. They don't work if you go to the closest place, which just happened to be the liquor store. In case you didn't know it, none of
Yeah,
our
it won't work
cards-
there.
No,
Darn.
even if you just want water, they don't work there. So good to know, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to drive. Dennis was the one who had to do that. But it was amazing, and we just had such an incredible turnout. 25% of the people, we had a lot of people, we don't know 100% for sure, but 25% based on signups and stuff were from Minnesota. Yeah, and we had 150 kids entered in the costume contest, and that was just people who were willing to have their names and faces and everything. Lots of cute contests. We gave away a T-shirt to everybody, a Parks T-shirt, and a special candy treat. So people loved it, just loved it. And it was free attendance. We treated it like a kind of a thank you to the public for all summer. So
Very
over
good.
700 people. It was madness.
And I'm going to ask you that same question at the full board meeting
Oh, okay.
in December, because there's
good
a
to
lot
know.
of, we're
Everybody-
only 3.
Right, everybody
There's
needs to
14
know.
there's 16 other
others.
board members
Right.
that
Need
need
to hear
to
that.
become aware of just how much usage the parks get and how important they are to people.
Right. And I have to do a shout out to the staff. I mean, Dennis and the rest of his crew, especially our newest Parks employee, JR, who's the new manager. He wanted to do this, tackle it in his first few months of working there, and really was a wonderful experience. He's got real great skills for when it comes to organization and pulling things off, and also enthusiasm, and also a lot of staff helped, but another person, our Ryan Hoagland, who does all of our marketing. Ryan is just kind of amazing, and these people, we didn't really think there'd be that much. There was a lot of competition that day. Other activities, obviously a Saturday, but beautiful weather, 50 degrees out, but you had a lot of choices to go to, and people came to our event.
Yeah.
It just was something else, so.
Very good.
And our staff just did an amazing job, really did, so.
Any other announcements or correspondence? All right, requests for future agenda items. Seeing none, we'll move, the date of our next meeting is Thursday, December 16th, 2021 at 5 o'clock. We've been through this meeting agenda, so this meeting is adjourned.